You have created a monster and will destroy you.
She's alive! Alive!
I am Dracula.
Welcome to Monster Manor. This is Scott Fenster. We've got a great show lined up for you. We're waiting for our very special guest, Michael BERRYMAN, to join the stream. He should be on shortly. While we're doing that, we can talk about some of the other stuff that's coming up on Monster Manor. Because many of you know we did our Gilibration in 2019. Gilibration was a celebration of the 65th anniversary of The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Well, we can't do it obviously live and in person, so we do have a show that we're planning for you guys. We will show you what's going on with that. But we do have guests that have been intimately involved with the series, including the Kilted Creature. If you went to Gilibration, you know that we have a great relationship with him, and he is a big fan of The Creature from the Black Lagoon. So we will be discussing things with him. We also have Daniel Roebuck, who, if you don't know who he is, Daniel Roebuck has been in just about every movie that you've seen out there, including The Fugitive, Late Shift. He is also the Dr. Shocker, and he is a huge Universal Monsters fan, a super fan. So he's going to be on the show as well. We also have John Agar's son, John Agar III. He's going to be on giving some of the memories of his father and the time that he was on the shooting of Revenge of the Creature. That's going to be a really fun show too, because he's got a lot of stories to tell. I've heard a few of them myself, and they are very, very enlightening. But without further ado, I am going to introduce a person that really needs no introduction. If you have seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or The Hills Have Eyes, or one of my favorites, it was a funny part in Weird Science, which I'm sure we can talk to him about that. Not to mention, Star Trek, which is where the very first time I saw this particular actor was in Star Trek for The Voyage Home, and he just captivated me. So without further ado, allow me to introduce Michael BERRYMAN.
Hello there.
Hi, Michael. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
It's nice to see you face to face, even if it's virtually.
Yeah, I'm sending you a virtual hello.
Very good to see you. And thank you for joining us. I know we're a relatively new show and a small show. We have a healthy following now. But personally, I'm a huge fan of your work. Everyone in my house is. We've seen you forever. But we wanted to talk to you specifically because you have a new book coming out, an autobiography. And I'm sure that's going to be chock full of cool things that people maybe didn't know about Michael BERRYMAN, the person, before he was even an actor. So we know that you've been acting since, what was your first role? Was it The One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or wasn't there one before that?
Yes, there was one day's work, actually. It was a 2-day guarantee according to the Taft-Hartley labor law, which allowed me to be a member of the Screen Actors Guild. According to that particular legislation, you could work one day on a union project and not be a member of a union. On day 2, you must be a member of that union. I actually learned that when I was at the University of California in San Luis Obispo. I took a class on labor history, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And then I learned about the AFL-CIO, George Meany, and the reason why there were unions in the first place. Basically, it was for collective bargaining. Safety was very huge. The amount of time that someone spent on a day's work, and the protection of children, and et cetera, et cetera. So actually, my first employment was through a gentleman by the name of George Powell. George Powell, for you history buffs, was a wonderful, fine gentleman from Europe, and he was doing a movie called Doc Savage. It was based on the pulp novels, and I had left the university, and this is all in my book, how it came out of a serendipitous situation. And what I mean by that is that I never had the plan to be an actor, be in the public eye ever in my life. I was actually planning on homesteading in Alaska and being a nature photographer, and or working with a habitat preservation for the animals in that particular area. I was a part owner of a little gift shop in Venice Beach, California, my hometown of Santa Monica, just a little bit north of there. And we had a little store, and it wasn't making much money, and we actually were going out of business. And one night, across the street at a very high-end, expensive antique store called the Gallimaufry, they were our friends and neighbors in business, and they said, look, we have antiquity, we have egg urns from the Ming Dynasty, and etc., and we're having an invitation-only sale, and there'll be a lot of millionaires, actually, and wealthy people coming over this evening, and we'll have wine and cheese, etc. And it would be really very nice if you brought over some of your nice palms and plants, etc., and spruce the place up, make it look kind of homey, you know. And so we said, yeah, sure, we'll do that. So we did. And during the evening, there was Rolls Royces and Bentleys, etc., dropping people off. And these are highfalutin people, very educated, very nice. It was a lovely evening. We were having a good time. And the wife of the husband, they were both owners of the store, came over and said, I'd like to introduce you to my father, George Powell. And I wasn't quite the name rang a bell, but I wasn't quite sure, who this guy was. And sure enough, this lovely gentleman, smiling, shook my hand, and he said, "Good evening." And he said, "Oh, excuse me, are you an actor?" And I thought it kind of funny. I said, "No, man, I'm not an actor. I have a degree in art history from the university, but I'm not an actor." And he says, "Well, you have a different look. You have the look that," and he put his hands up, made the frame. He says, "Well, you have the look of a character that I would like to have in my movie, Doc Savage." And my mind kind of went into overdrive, and I'm going, "God, that sounds familiar." And I go, "Oh yeah, those little pulp novels. Yeah, I read some of those. That was kind of fun." But something else was spinning in my head, and it was his name. And by the time I realized who he was, he said, "Well, I would like to put you in my movie." And I said, I've had enough exposure, having looking different, etc., and all of the history. A lot of my fans understand the history of how I had my first haircut, etc. Anyway, I said, how may I help you? And he says, well, I'm doing a movie called Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze. And then I said, well, excuse me. And I want to preface it with this. We all decided to dress up and have fun. So the idea was that if somebody bought something, that they would give them one of our plants. You know, look, we were a little shop. We weren't making much money. We were a bunch of hippy dippies, good arty farty people. Matter of fact, I think we smoked a doobie and had some wine before we went over there. Anyway, I was actually living in the shop. It was an old beach house at the time, and I was pretty much homeless. This is all in my book. It's very interesting. You will buy it when it comes out. I have a website called michaelberryman.com, and I'll keep you all up to date. We're just about done with that. So back to the story. I said, George, you produced The War of the Worlds and The Journey to the Center of the Earth and The Time Machine. And then he puts his hand on my shoulder and he taps my shoulder and he goes, it's all good. And he handed me a business card. It was from Warner Brothers Studios. And sure enough, it said George Powell, producer. And I said, well, I'm kind of overwhelmed. What do you want me to do? And he says, I'll give you a 2-day guarantee under the Taft-Hartley law, and I will make sure that you have a union card from the Screen Actors Guild, and I'll pay you $750. And if you ever have a career out of this, let the world know that I, George Powell, discovered Michael Berryman. You know, it goes back to the old story of people, you know, being discovered at an ice cream parlor, at the pharmacy in Beverly Hills, et cetera, or at the beach and that kind of stuff. So that's how the story actually happened. And it was a delightful one day to work with Ron Ely. And we filmed at the Harold Lloyd Estate, which is also very historical. And just to sum up the introduction to how I became an actor, my driver, who was in the Screen Extras Union, unbeknownst to me, when I showed up at the set at the Harold Lloyd Estate, I'm the coroner of the the city of Hidalgo, you know, Juan Jose Morales, that'd be me. And we're in this old Cadillac town car, and we're supposed to drive up this driveway and stop on the mark, and be in frame, and then get out and bring the autopsy report to Doc Savage. Well, these old vehicles, if you've ever been on a set, they don't always function very well because they're old, and you know they have to make repairs to make sure they keep working. And the clutch kept slipping. So the transportation people, which are wonderful, tell my driver, okay, the clutch is slipping. we just put five pounds of sugar and slip the clutch to get it all sticky. So it's probably good for 2 passes. So you better hit the mark. And we were on a tight lens. So we're driving up the driveway, and I'm laughing and joking at my friend, explaining to him that this is my one day of acting job, and it'll be my only acting job because I want to homestead in Alaska, and this is just ridiculous. And the most ironic thing of all was, unbeknownst to me until I arrived, was that my driver for the scene was Antonio Caruso. Now, his father was an actor, and he had a mole on his cheek, a very Italian fellow, very good friend of my family, Tony Caruso, and he was in Star Trek when Kirk and the rest of the crew get the signal from the old television series of our gangster movies, and it was the one where he goes, they capture the captain and everybody, and the mafia lords, they want what the Star Trek boys have, and he's the one that says, I want one of those fancy heaters you have there, Kirk. Well, that was my friend's father, and Antonio, the son, the driver of this car, didn't get the call until like about 9 o'clock the night before. So here he arrives, and unbeknownst to him and me, we hadn't seen each other in 15 years.
Mhm.
And so it was a lovely day, a family reunion, and we're driving along, and he misses the mark on the first go, and he's a nervous wreck. And then we had to have the transport guys back the car all the way back to point one, and then on the second go around, we nailed it, and then we went on to finish the scene. It was a wonderful day, but I thought it would be my only day as an actor.
Wow. So what changed that? Because I mean, the rest of your career tells the rest of the story that you actually wound up acting for decades. So what was that? Was that the impetus? I mean, did you have that much fun, or was it, how did that happen?
You'll have to read the book. No, I'll share with you and your listeners a great follow-up question. I actually was going to take the money that from George's project and laminate my Screen Actors Guild card and put it in a little frame and put it on the wall of my office. And I was going to take that money and I put it into my four-wheel drive truck and bought a PTO winch. If you're not a motorhead, oh well, I'll just tell you what it is. If you get stuck in the woods, you can get unstuck with a winch. And yes, I was ready to homestead in Alaska. I had the paperwork to get that done. And a few weeks went by, and I received a phone call. And as a matter of fact, I'm at page 151 right now in my book at 48,000 words. And in my book on chapter 28, I explain and answer that specific question. I could say, go to my website and wait about a month or so, and you'll find out what that is. But I'll give you a treat. Here's what happened. There was a casting director for George Powell, for Doc Savage. It was Mike Fenton and Gene Feinberg, very famous, very well-known casting directors. I had never met them because I was cast by George Powell. So, and by the way, at that particular time, what happened before what I'm going to explain to you is a very heartfelt story. My book is called It's All Good, and it's about being born in 1948. My father was a Navy neurologist and brain and surgeon. He had polio, so he couldn't do surgery anymore, but he went on to become a world-renowned neurologist. Okay, 1948, my father just come home from Hiroshima. He went on a secret mission with the Defense Department to see what the effect of atomic radiation from the bomb was. Mm-hmm. I have pictures of images of vaporized human beings against cement walls. Mm. I am a avid, not a pacifist, and humanity. Humanity is my number one credo. We should all treat each other with respect. We should all understand that. My father used to ask me specific questions. For instance, he would say that I see someone on the street, and he'd say, what do you think's wrong with them? And he would diagnose them. He would say things that were very philosophical. For instance, he would say, I've done many autopsies. I've never found the soul. Where do you think it is? He would pose these queries to me. He was a very fine gentleman, as my mother and grandmother. So those are all the prefatory stories that lead up to at the very end of the book is how I got to where your query took us. So Mike Fenton and Gene Feinberg happened. I didn't even have 8x10s. I didn't even have an agent. I'm ready to go to Alaska. And what happens? I'm living in the street. I'm on various friends' couches. This is back in the days when there was no cell phones. It was hardline phones. I had a pager and a lot of quarters because there were payphones everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend said, "Hey, you need to call this number because somebody wants you to be in a movie. Can you believe that?" And I go, "What?" So I made the phone call, and Mike Fenton picked up the phone, and he said, "I need you to go to Culver Studios and meet, um, you know, Milos Forman and Saul Zaentz." And I go, "What?" Okay, hang on. So I wrote down the information, and the next thing I know is I'm going down to Culver Studios, and I get there, and the guard gives me a pass and sticks it underneath my windshield wiper, and I go, well, I'm looking to see where I park. Okay, I'm looking around, and I see all of the wonderful sets, and I was a big movie buff as early as I could, turn on the knob on a TV, on black and white TV, and I go to the meeting, and there's Michael Douglas. And there's Joel Douglas and the casting directors and Milos Forman wearing his sweater around his neck tied in a knot and that ever-present pipe and those bushy eyebrows and that inquisitive look. And then there was this guy at the end of the table with a big booming voice who kind of looked like a pirate. His name was Saul Zaentz. Fantasy Films, Berkeley, California, and they're very warm and wonderful. And so I sit down and we start the meeting, and they explain they're doing Cuckoo's Nest. Now, of course, I'd seen the book. I'd seen the play and read the book. I have a degree in art history. I said, well, how are you going to make this movie? I said, well, we're going to film it at Oregon State Mental Hospital, and we have a guy that's up and coming, and he's going to play McMurphy, and his name is Jack Nicholson. And at that point, I thought to myself, this might be a worthwhile gig. Yeah. And and then Michael Douglas started to tell me that his father, Kirk Douglas, had wanted to produce Cuckoo's Nest and play McMurphy. Mm-hmm. But the studios didn't think that a movie about mental illness or such subject matter was something that people would have of interest. And I told Michael, I said, look, my father was a world-renowned neurologist. I used to go on house calls with my father. I've been to Patton State Mental Hospital and other places like that. Mental illness is not a stigma. My father, when he passed away, he made sure people would not be sued for their inability to pay their doctor bills. He says it's not their fault. Muhammad Ali was one of my father's patients. My father told Muhammad Ali not to go to Manila. I used to draw pictures on the back sides of EEG papers in my father's from his desk in the office at our house. So I was very acutely aware of lobotomies, electroshock therapy, and things of that nature. When my father would make house calls, well, he made house calls. Mm-hmm. One night, he's driving down an alley in Los Angeles, and he parks the car, and there's a back entrance to this house, a little deck, and then there's a window. And he says, "You see that window?" He says, "That's where my patient is. I'm going to go inside, and I'm going to pull the curtain apart so you can see me. And if I give you a high sign, I want you to come in and rescue me." Now, my father had polio and was in an iron lung for quite a while. He survived, and it was after I was born. He'd been working in Los Angeles at LA County hospitals and was picked up the virus. and it burned up all of his pectoralis muscles and most of his muscles halfway up his arms, so he couldn't do surgery anymore. And he continued on in neurology and uh, his specialty, echoencephalogram, and he could find the midline of a brain and tell you if there was a tumor growing, things of that nature. He was very astute. And I said, "Okay, Dad, how do you want me to help you?" And he handed me a Smith & Wesson 38. I grew up being very facile with handguns and proper ways to handle firearms. I was 14 years old. So I'm sitting with a Smith & Wesson in my lap with my eyes glued to the window, and everything went fine. The reason he had me do that was because he carried a little black bag. He was a real doctor. He had stuff that a junkie would kill for, liquid injectables, highest kind, morphine, Demerol, etc. So he was a real down-to-earth kind of guy. And I know I get wordy on my responses, but it's enriching, so dig it. Okay, so that being said, I told Michael Douglas and Saul Zaentz, I said, I've been to these places, and the story that you're telling me about in Cuckoo's Nest is about humanity and the importance of us understanding that therefore by the grace of God go I.
Yes.
You could be brilliant today, slip in that bar of soap in the shower tonight, and be not brilliant, and have the rest of your days of your life be not subservient to, but to be embraced with the hopefully dignity and humanity of how you're going to be treated. Okay. Now, there was a guy by the name of Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan closed down a lot of those hospitals that I went to as a child to see my father take care of those people. Ronald Reagan made that happen to where these facilities were shut down. He didn't want the state of California paying for the upkeep and care of these people. And a lot of those people didn't have the money or finances or the ability to care for themselves. So you know what? They became our homeless. Okay, there's a wake-up call, folks. So what happened? He caused the death and suffering of a lot of innocent people that were preyed upon by thugs and goons. So again, the whole story about Cuckoo's Nest is about humanity and the importance of understanding that we're all God's children. Yeah. So I said, I'm on board with this. And then I'll sum it up with this. They said, well, we'll see you in Oregon. We'll send you, your script and your plane ticket, etc. I made $750 for a 70-hour work week. And I'll tell you in my book how much Jack Nicholson was making per day when he walked off the set when Sid Lassick was I want my cigarettes, Nurse Ratched, and he was trying to upstage Jack Nicholson, and it was amazing. This is after about 10 weeks into production, and Jack walks off the set because his Sidney just couldn't take a hint, and he looks over his shoulder. Nicholson does, and he goes, it's just another day, another 10 grand, right, Sid? Oh, and there was some. Sid went down the hallway and got a talking to, and then I heard something really funny. Was I could hear the second AD had to tell the caterer that we're having an early lunch, and you don't. I'm sorry, but you don't piss off people that have knives. Right. So that's how that happened. It's long story, winded, a lot of words, but if you don't have the backstory, it's just a short, terse answer. And I think I heard your lead in, and I want to say I appreciate the meat on the bone that you have on your podcast. It makes it very. It's almost like being on AMC.
Yes. Well, we try to me, because I've been involved with the love of movies for so long, anytime I meet, and I've met you before at shows, but I've never really gotten a chance to speak to you because I've always been doing makeup demos or, working a table or something like that. So this is an extreme treat. But I always love to find out more about the actor themselves. When I appreciate someone's work, I know because I've seen it firsthand, the work that goes into that. I am horrible, on this side of the camera. This is an interview, so it's about the guest. It's not about me, but I could never do acting, that sort of thing, because you have to have such a grasp of emotion. That's why one of my favorite artists of all time was Karloff, because he could act so much in Frankenstein and not have a word of dialogue, similar to what you did in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You didn't have a word of dialogue, I don't think. Was it ever filmed and then cut, or did you never have a word of dialogue in that?
I never had a word of dialogue. The importance of the character of Ellis was the fact that he was a misbehaving, strong-willed human being, and he did not appreciate Nurse Ratched, the institutionalization, and what would the word be? When you put something in a cage, basically the institutionalization of humanity and how you're supposed to care for people. I mean, there's many subplots in the story, and it's all about the human spirit. So, no, but the importance of the Ellis character is that he was given a lobotomy as a punishment, because he was a rabble rouser. When things weren't going right, he would speak up. Now, when we got to Salem, Oregon, we had 2 weeks of orientation where on a 6-day work week, every day we had to spend at least 1 hour on a different area of the institution, including the geriatric ward, which is your seniors. And we would have to spend at least 1 hour every day with real patients, and of course the orderlies would be beside us. Dr. Dean Brooks in the movie, that is Dr. Dean Brooks. He was the real guy that ran that institution. Now, because of the birth defects that I had from my father being exposed to Hiroshima, which is what caused my premature birth. I had a fused craniectomy. That's why they cut open all the way across my skull, and at Children's Hospital, and it was fused, so there's no soft spot. My brain would grow, my skull would not, and I'd be dead. And on the cover of my book will be me as a little kid with my curly hair before my first haircut and only haircut. So being keenly aware of institutions and medical, my family goes back 4 generations from doctors and nurses. So, and I said I had studied to be a veterinarian, but the ends of my fingers are my knuckles, and in long story short, I couldn't be a vet. As a matter of fact, today I want to do a shout out to my good buddy Kiki, our 20-year-old black and white cat. We had to euthanize her today. It's just ironic that it all comes together as life does. So
I'm sorry.
It was a good death. There is such a thing. She went sweet, painlessly in our laps, and we just buried her a couple hours ago. So Ellis. The one moment in the movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, when it was my only close-up, and yes, I had no lines, but the importance of the character, it even has a name, and why was he in there, was to reveal the potential fate of McMurphy. Okay, so when they have the vote to watch the World Series, they come around to everybody, Nurse Ratched, Louise Fletcher, who is a real sweetheart, and we're very, very good friends. Now, Louise Fletcher had not done a lot of acting for quite some time because she was taking care of her parents, and they were mute. And when she came back into the film industry to do Cuckoo's Nest, she told me one night we were having dinner, and she said, this is such a strong role. I hope people don't hate me. And I hope I don't get typecast as a bitch, a mean person, horrible person. But as actors, we do the dance that we do. We
Exactly.
portray human frailty and human emotion and strengths and weaknesses, and what appears to be on the surface isn't always the complete the totality of the person. So that's what acting is about. Now, you said that you couldn't be an actor. I disagree. I think you do just fine. The main thing is to believe, know your story, know your lines, hit your mark, learn about camera. I learned a lot about the camera. I didn't know anything about it until I asked Milos one day. I said, what do I need to know? We were using carbon arc lighting, which are carbon rods that give wonderful diffusion. The French bought all of them, pretty much. They went to a different technology with the HMI lights and what have you. And you had to make sure you had enough rod to burn while you're doing the distance in seconds and time for a take. Because if you don't have the long enough rod and the burn time, you get toward when it's very, very important. I'm going to tell you something, and then it flickers and cut, and you have to redo it. So they would say something like, okay, striking the arc, and they'd start the arc, and these are outdoor lights. And boy, they really kind of burn your eyes. Well, the humanity that took place between in Cuckoo's Nest, thanks to Saul Zaentz, Milos Forman, Michael and Joel Douglas, the producers that made it happen, they balls to the walls, and God bless them for getting this film made. Kirk Douglas could not even get it made, so that tells you something. Wow. And they did it. Now, I digressed when I was telling you about how we had to learn about what it was like to live in these institutions. I had spent time with them with my father. So one day we're in the criminally insane ward. When they go up to get the electroshock therapy, and there's a black gentleman stirring the invisible cauldron, they all had permission signed off to be extras in the film. Well, there was another shot where this young man is looking through the window of the door to his room. He's going to spend his entire life. It's my stupid phone. He's going to spend his entire life incarcerated because he was an arsonist. He burned a church, and people died. So on the course of one day, they said, okay, we're going to go to the criminally insane ward, and we're going to spend an hour with a patient. Spend an hour and spend time with patients. So they invited me into this guy's room, one-on-one, closed the door with the orderly looking right through the window to make sure there was no problems. And they knew I had studied art history, so they wanted me to look at the guy's artwork. It was charcoal on paper. It was pictures that he drew of buildings and people on fire. Oh, wow. And during the course of time spending one-on-one in this room, about a 8 by 12 foot room, where you go out and you have privileges to go outside or whatever, escorted, but you can spend your whole life there. Okay. Yeah. And I asked this kid straight up, how'd you get here? What's your life about? What's your backstory to you? What makes you tick? And he told me straight up. Wow. So that's a kind of day-to-day slap in the face reality of what is this really like? And we had I worked 127 days doing this. And so when it came time for my close-up, my one and only close-up, I've got the lobotomy scars here and here. Right. And they, by the way, I want to shout out to my dear friend, Fred Phillips. Fred Phillips' father started the Makeup Artists Union. Fred Phillips had been in the industry for so long. He would drive from Topanga Canyon, California in his Cadillac, and he would tow his trailer. So he had a little piece of home and one of his dogs with him. And he would drive to the location and stay at a trailer park. And he would tell me that the reason he did that was he was kind of burned out on staying in hotels. And all the shenanigans that goes on. It's not shenanigans. You live in a hotel for 4 months. You're going to know everybody's foibles and troubles,
Right.
which is again is fascinating. So Fred made my lobotomy scars, and every morning I would start my day as a young and freshman actor, and I learned things from Milos. Fred would tell me stories about all kinds of famous people that you talk about. And one of them was Boris Karloff. And years later, I got to become very good friends with Sarah Karloff.
Oh.
Who, if we come back and do your show again, I can share some of those stories. So back to my close-up. Previously, within the first 100 days, I had asked Milos what I needed to know about the artwork of working with film and camera. And he had me walk over to the cinematographer, and he said, I want you to look through the eyepiece of a Panavision camera. And I'm doing that, and I'm pulling focus, and I'm starting to understand what it means when they put those little marks on the floor, and they take the tape, and you're supposed to put it right to your eye for a reason. It's called focal distancing, so so you know where your sharp focus is. And what people don't understand, television, you're lit from so many different directions. It's a little easier to a certain degree, except these people have to learn their lines, and there's so much to learn on a fast, quick pace. It's tough. They do earn their dollars. So Milos told me, he says, here's the secret. And now he has me stand in front of the camera. And I got a beautiful chapter on this in my book. It's just, but I'll share a little bit with you. Here's what he says. I'm looking at this beautiful, beautiful piece of machinery, and he says, I want you to have a love affair with the glass. I'm sure you understand what that means. And then he hands me a book on cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have my one close-up, the point is there's so much humanity because of Jack Nicholson's character in this institution that is so subservient, and the spirit of these people are crushed by the iron grip of Nurse Ratched. We called her Ratched.
Yeah.
It took that humanity to massage and like oil through rust to get to the mechanism of a human being to feel alive again, because they drug you.
Right.
See,
right.
They drug you. We heard all kinds of stories from patients how it was cheaper for the drug companies to sell drugs to the states, so they wouldn't have to hire human beings to do one-on-one care with people, because these weren't people. These were just things. These were nut bags. These are people in a nut house in real life, and not just in the movie.
Yep.
And if you go to a pool
population.
Absolutely. So there, what happens to the least of us happens to all of us. So when Ellis smiles, that little bit of a smile is huge.
Mm-hmm.
So I waited months to do that scene. And it's a scene where Sid Lassick is giving me the booze through the enema tube, and he wouldn't shut up. And the one take that is in the movie is the least intrusive take that we had. He went over the top and tried to steal the scene over and over and over and over again. And you got to understand, if Jack Nicholson's getting $10,000 a day, I'm getting $750 for a week.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it costs to have 200 people on the payroll every day, and you're the producer? What do you think it costs by the second? They can tell you that number. Mm-hmm. So we're burning time, and Sid's just hogging the scene. Finally, Milos Forman says, cut. And we hadn't gotten a shot yet. And they're having a huddle. And then Joseph Elick, God bless him, he was one of my mentors, along with Fred Phillips. He's Bancini. I'm tired. That's Joe Elick. Joe Elick walked up to Sid Lassick, took him over to his corner, and said, quote, "Listen, you son of a bitch, this is the kid's one and only close-up. This is his moment. This is a scene that's important for the story, for this movie. This is what our director needs. And he says, you tell me why I shouldn't just deck you right now. I should just punch you out and drop you to the floor." And then Michael Douglas and Milos Forman walk up to Sid Lassick and take him down the hallway and again chew his ass out, and then we drag him back out to the set, and then we do the one take, and I got that one little, from a zombie to a, that's it. That was my whole purpose. I was even there.
And it said so much. And that's the thing I'm talking about. An actor like you can take a moment, a fraction of a second, and turn it into something where you feel emotion for that character or what they've been through or that little bit of breakthrough. I mean, my father, I know we didn't have a chance to talk about this, and it's not a fun topic. My father actually had a brain tumor. He passed away from a brain tumor. He had a oligodendroglioma. And I was 17 when he passed. But
Wow.
I lived for those moments. And I saw One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest as an adult. So I could relate to that little breakthrough. Oh my gosh. You know, I mean, it was amazing. And I know that's something silly to kind of focus on. But to me, seeing that with my dad, that meant a lot. To see that almost breakthrough moment or that epiphany or whatever you call it, it was magic. I mean, there was so much about your performances, even in what would be considered like, I mean, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is not light viewing. It's very heavy. It's got a very important topic. They haven't been able to capture that again, even in the Ratchet series. God bless them for trying. I don't think, if you've seen it, they have a series now. It's like a prequel.
Is it called Ratchet?
Ratchet, yes.
Oh, you're kidding.
I was expecting so much. It is on Netflix right now, not intending a commercial or anything like that. But
oh, no, I'll look for it tonight. We have Netflix.
It's very interesting.
Thank you for sharing.
I was hoping for a lot more out of it, but it was very interesting to see. I would definitely recommend checking it out, especially with your history with it. But you know, I have to ask, because you go from a film like that that's deep and culturally poignant on so many levels, very timely on so many levels, and then you have Pluto, which a lot of people recognize you as Pluto, and that character. Again, none of these characters are throwaway characters. They all have such, you almost want to know what the backstory is to the character. But how do you go from playing that role with the directors and the producers and the teams that you were to Pluto in arguably now Wes Craven, that's one of his more popular pieces?
Great question. That's actually from a very good movie. I play. I'm actually the good guy in this, in the image you're seeing right now. I'm trying to remember. That wasn't Brutal. No. The image you just showed. That was.
Yeah, I think we got
Gunner. I play Gunner. I'm actually trying to protect a young child in that one. Well, to answer your question, quite honestly, there's Pluto from Hills 2. That's from the Hills 2. We had a bigger budget then. That poor kid wanted me to actually kick him in the head because he didn't know how to take a hit in a shot. That'll be in my second book. What you have to do is, number one, know your lines, know how to work with your camera, and get the shot, get the framing right. And I can't. And just as an aside, if you're an actor, please articulate, and please, if something's really, really important, don't go, "When did this happen? What?" Don't do that. I had lived in the high desert for quite a few years. There are very few places on the planet that are as beautiful and as the desert is after the heavy rains. Most
Mm.
people say a desert sand, there's nothing there. Well, in the spring, when it's in bloom, there's nothing quite like it. It is absolutely amazing. I'd
Yeah.
spent a lot of time in that particular zip code, and so I knew how to make it happen, so to speak. So the survival skills that Pluto had were primal.
Right.
So and the sense of humor that Wes Craven and Peter Locke, Peter's still with us. I keep in touch with Peter. Matter of fact, Peter Locke played Mercury with the bonnet of the feathers. Hey Pluto, I know what you're
Right.
doing. Next time, I'll eat the toes. You think everybody laugh? And then he gets pushed off the rock. That was our executive producer. I had no idea who Wes Craven was at the time.
Right. That was new. He was new
he
for that.
explained he explained about the McBean family, and so the main thread of the theme in Hills Have Eyes. What's the there's action and there's rough and tumble behavior. The Phyllis and Wes was a very brilliant man, very brilliant man. He understood psychology and sociology very, very strong. So the point was of the Hills Have Eyes is that you have two families. Yeah, we called them the white bread family, which was kind of really fun, and then we had the Hills family. And I'm still very, very good friends with Susan Lanier Bramlett. We talk on a daily basis, just about. She was just so sweet. When I had the scene where I'm supposed to attack her and disrespect her, she said, "Hey, look, when they pull the curtain back on the first take, let's be heavily making out." So we did, and we had a lot of fun. Wes laughed. I mean, we had a good time with that. One of the really cool things that I like about The Hills Have Eyes is that in the trailer, there was a torn poster of what movie?
I don't think I've seen the trailer.
No, in the trailer, in the movie, I attacked Susan Lanier in
Oh,
the
in the
trailer.
trailer?
Yes, in the trailer. There's
Oh,
a poster on the wall behind
okay.
Susan and I.
I
It's
don't think I
torn.
ever noticed that watching the action.
You're gonna have to watch it because, okay, it was a shout out homage by the director Wes Craven to the director of the guy who made the movie Jaws.
Okay. I
It's a
will have,
Jaws poster. It's a Jaws poster.
okay.
And what movie? In what movie is there a Hills Have Eyes poster?
I would assume Jaws. It would have had to been like a no?
No, no. Oh, yeah, you're gonna kick yourself.
You're testing me here.
Yes, I am. Evil Dead.
Oh, that's right. That's right. There was a Hills Have Eyes
Gotcha.
poster. There was a Jaws poster, I believe. The Freddy glove. There were a lot of little things that Sam Raimi put in that.
Yeah. Well, Sam was a lot of fun. I do a lot of conventions, um, and it's always delightful to have dinners. And one of my favorite people to have dinner with, on which I have done on many occasions, is Sarah Karloff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's just such a sweetie.
I
Um,
only one in Chiller, and boy, oh boy, I remember seeing because she's been in books since she was a child. Because you'd see
oh
pictures
yeah,
of Karloff on set, and you know,
yeah.
unbelievable woman. She is just in the stories that she has, but the class she has, you
Oh
almost just don't find today anymore.
no, one of my favorite places on the planet was um, in LA, where all the old anybody who's still kicking around with a pulse would have breakfast. I'm trying to think of the name of the restaurant. Uh, I want to say Pioneers Club. No, what's? Oh man, oh, my brain is befuddled. I can't think of it right now.
Well, it
But
is late, and you've had a heck of a day.
it's been an interesting day. But to bring it home, I'll just say you have to believe in the character.
Hmm.
You have to. How do you play a role that's not you in real life?
Mm-hmm.
And again, in Hills Have Eyes, under the right circumstances, somebody who's a good person can do something very heinous,
Yeah.
depending upon the situation. Um, I will just say this. One of my favorites. I'm not a okay. I'm a pacifist to a degree, but don't make me cross that line. If
Amen.
you make me cross that line, shame on you. I
Mm,
have put myself in harm's way between a potential victim and perpetrator on more than one occasion.
mhm.
And there are those moments when you go, a little voice inside of your head says, try to keep everything just copacetic, because if you don't, you're going to die. It's not something you go out and seek out. Sometimes it seeks you, or you intersect with time and space and a situation. That being said, when you're asked to play the role of the aggressor, because I was on the last Morton Downey Jr. show, and that was one of the main questions. One of the women on the panel thought that people that portrayed stuff like I've never really hardly killed anybody in a movie,
Mm,
actually, or portray heinous behavior. I actually walked off a set because, I actually told the producer and director one night in Wisconsin on a particular movie, they wanted me to do a scene in a particular manner. And I said, no, we're not going to do it that way. And I took out my cassette recorder that I recorded off a phone conversation when we were discussing the script. And it was even in my contract writer how we were going to do the scene.
mhm.
They wanted me to do it in a different manner. I said, no, we're not going to do it that way. We can do it in the following manner that I described. So it's implied violence as opposed to graphic violence.
Right. Which is
And they
lost
had,
nowadays.
which is way stronger, So there, I actually left with a cash check. Went for me out the next morning. They hired somebody else, and the movie's crap. I won't even mention what it is. But
Mm,
you have to have your ethics. You also have to have the ability to be honest in the scene. Now, there's a scene in Hills Have Eyes where Wes wanted, and I have the binoculars, and we're getting ready to attack the family. And Wes said, in this scene, he says, I want you to take your knife and in a threatening manner go, scrape it across a boulder, and then off you go. I says, I know what you're looking for visually, Wes, but Pluto's knife would be deadly razor sharp at any given moment. It could split a hair, and to swipe it across a rock would dull it. He wouldn't do that. And
right.
we actually had an argument about that. And he says, "Oh, okay, then we'll do something else." And I was a butcher. I was a meat cutter in college. But
Yeah. Yeah.
the point reads to the fact that you have to believe the character. Now I've worked with all kinds of famous people, Eric Roberts. I mean, you name it, and some people. So some of us artists, actors, are in character all the time. That's the
Mhm.
way they process. Other people are gregarious and outgoing and babbling all day long. Um,
Right.
so but you have to be able to turn it on, and it has to come from within.
Well,
Now, go
you
ahead.
pretty much described a scene from a movie that my family here absolutely loves. And you talk about the on off. Weird Science. I know that that was just a small element to it, but you go from an 11 to the guy next door. How did that come about? I mean, I know I'm switching gears here and I want to be respectful of your time, but how did you get there? What, cuz John Hughes, amazing director at the time, huge, wonderful to his cast. You've never heard a negative thing. When you how did you get asked to do that role?
Well, I'm sure they were looking in the Book of Faces. Basically, there's a book, and now I'm sure it's all online, where it's leading men, leading women, ingenues, kids, and then character actors. So I was under the category of character actor. So he just probably figured I had the right look. I don't know if there was a conversation between a previous director or producer, but anyway, I just got a phone call from my agent, Lou Deucer, who is just a wonderful guy, old school. Hey, kid, you got a gig, you know. I mean, when he told me I was going to do a Motley Crue video, he called it a gig. I thought it was funny coming from him. Anyway, so I go to this. I go to the set, Yeah, yeah, wonderful. And the guys are wonderful. I love the crew. They're Nikki and everybody, and Mick. We've been friends for a long time. There you go. Just absolute delightful. I would work with them in a heartbeat.
I loved you in those videos too. I
Oh,
love.
we had so much fun. We had so much fun. So I'm meeting John Hughes, and I mean, look, they built a house inside a studio, and it actually did rain books. It was a beautiful, gorgeous stunt woman that does fly up and out and into the pond. I got to meet a gentleman who I think is just exquisitely charming and talented, and well, Michael Anthony Hall, he's a producer now. He looks really good, and he filled out. He's all, he's all that, and he's got a suit. But Robert Downey Jr. I knew would just be a skyrocketing talent, and I do want to do a shout out to one of our lost brothers that's passed on, and that was. You think they're happy being catatonic in the closet? It's so disrespectful. Yeah, but they're not aging anymore. Chit, it's Chet. Yeah. I remember talking to him and saying, "Hey, you're my favorite whiner." Yes. What do you mean those teeth? And I go, "Well, aliens." Game over, man. True Lies.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, True Lies.
Yeah, we watched it just the other day. It's one of my wife and our favorite movies. But yeah, what's that actor's name?
Bill Paxton.
That's right, good old Bill. And it was funny because I always would give any of my actor friends a goof when it was haircut. When he's driving the Corvette, what's with the receding hairline stuff, So again, it goes back to being in the moment. So John Hughes says, as we're leaving, here's a little secret. He says, okay, he explains, how we wind up becoming with Vernon Wells. And Vernon, I knew Vernon before he met his wife, Gracie, and he's a wonderful guy. You're going to be the threat so these kids can be heroes. And we had a lot of fun with that. And then he said, John Hughes comes up to me after, we get our comeuppance and we're exiting. He says, Michael, I'm going to have the camera on you. We're going to pan out, and then Vernon's going to do his, scream, and he gets the shotgun back, and then we exit. But can you come up with a line that explains what are these characters, you mutants, causing this threat in this kid's house? What do you do on your 9 to 5? And he says, and he walks away, and he says, "I'll be right back with your answer." And I'm going, "What am I going to come up with?" And he comes back, and I go, "Well, these kids are brats at school. Oh, maybe he's the principal or somebody." And he goes, "Yeah, it's a great idea. I said, let's do that." And so we did. But I want to share something that hardly anybody knows. I had studied camera and cinematography, and I knew what it was like when you have a dolly shot, and the camera's following me, and in a motion shot like that, it's hard to cut away and cut back for an insert, or not an insert, but it's hard to cut away and then cut right back. Right. So it's seamless. So I said, well, while I'm moving, if I over my shoulder throw a line out there, it'll remain in even though it's not a scripted line. Okay. Brilliant. So when I was in grammar school, one of my dear friends in 5th grade was Richard Skelton, Red Skelton's son. And when Richard came down with leukemia and he was terminal, his father said, Red Skelton said, "I'm going to take my family, my daughter, my wife, and my son, and fly them around the world so my son can see the world before he's bedridden and dies from leukemia because it's terminal." So he told the studio that, and they said, "Well, we'll sue you because we're live TV and we won't have any product." And he says, "Well, you go ahead and do that, and I'll tell everybody what a wonderful person you are." course, they changed their mind, and then they wanted to sponsor, and I think it was GWA or Pan American Airlines that sponsored the family. I've got the newspaper clipping somewhere in one of my totes. But at the end of a Red Skelton show every week, he would say, "I want to thank you all for being our guests for your family's entertainment tonight. I want to thank our sponsors, and we'll see you next week. Good night for now, and God bless." Well, the studio executives didn't think it was proper for him to say God bless. And Red Skelton, this is Red Skelton telling me this. He said, "What's the name of the show?" Well, it's a Red Skelton show. See, so as I'm leaving in the scene in Weird Science, and I apologize, and I'm pushing the motorcycle, and then I'm over my shoulder, I said, "God bless." That was a shout out to my friend Red Skelton.
Oh, beautiful.
And John Hughes got it.
Oh, of course he did, because he's a lover of nostalgia and film and television cinema. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, he totally knew it. Matter of fact, we went and we broke for lunch, and he put his hand on my shoulder. He says, "Hey, Michael, I just want to tell you that I know what you just did there. Let's come with me to my trailer, and let's talk and have lunch."
And I'm so glad that you did that movie just for that moment. It was so rich. And
thank you.
I did speak with very briefly, the gentleman that played Wyatt, who's actually a professor.
Oh.
He says hi. He wasn't comfortable coming on to the show because he tries to
really?
stay out of it.
I think he became a school teacher in real life.
Yes, he is in California. He's in university literature.
Really?
So he is like,
fascinating.
and you talk about filling out. This guy, oh my gosh, he's you see him and he's an adult, and you think of him as being just squeaky voice little Wyatt, but look him up, because I'll tell you, you see all the stuff that he does, and he still has that nerd in him, because he does D&D and paints miniatures, but he is a legitimate, like, in the world of the scholars. So but I would love to get him on. I doubt he would ever come on the show, but he did say hi, and
I'll see if I can't reach out to him. Maybe I could. I'll try to convince him to do so, because I had no idea, what your show would be like. As a matter of fact, I was taking a nap, and then I got your text, and I go, "Oh, I got to go do this." Okay, yeah. and
well, it's the show. The way that I describe it is, I want it to be a love letter to all the people who
really
contributed to horror. Across the board, from the classics all the way to I usually cut it off around 80s, 90s, because after that it gets a little bit too much into the blood and gore. Not exclusively, but I think a lot of productions, they do tend to lean a little bit too much on that and less on the cerebral. I always loved cerebral movies more. And your parts, like you were saying, they're never one-dimensional, where you've never killed anyone on screen. You've never you've always had that pacifist role, and you've done varied characters. Again, I have to go back to the Star Trek, because that's the first thing that I ever saw Michael Berryman, the actor, first in Voyage Home, and then in Star Trek Next Gen. That was from Voyage Home. The I guess you were the monitor. I
was the graphics display officer,
right.
and that makeup was just exquisitely gorgeous. And I got to do a shout out to how well they tailor your outfits. I mean, they fine tune it. I had mini breakfasts with Majel Barrett over the years, and she would, tell me stories about Star Trek and in the early days, and how the studio wouldn't give Gene a very good budget and things of that nature. But what I liked about science fiction, I had an aunt who was a nurse, and she gave me books to read as a young child. I loved science fiction, and I loved adventure. My grandfather was a painter. His father was a court painter for the king and queen of Sweden. He mixed his paints with he would mix the pigments and make his paints. He painted cars with a brush. And in my book, I tell the lovely story about how him being a quote dumb Swede. We're talking prejudice here, and I know what prejudice is about. If you look different, or if you have different pigmentation, there are many reasons. Or if you walk with a gimp or whatever, have a stutter. I understand what all of that is all about. And I've been involved throughout my life with children's organizations, the Navajo, Aho to my brothers in Tuba City, what it's like in different parts of the world and how people are misunderstood. You know, again, it goes right back to the humanity issue. Well, I digressed and lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
Oh, we were talking about Star Trek and
That's right. See, you're still sharp at this old age. I'm 72 and I'm messing with you. I was in a situation where I was protecting a family and kids. I can't say too much more because there might be one particular perp that's still around. Long story short, be careful what you wish for, you might get it. As a kid, I loved sci-fi and what have you, and what is it? The hero gets the gal. I always thought that was kind of cool if that would ever happen, and it actually happened. But there's a lot more that goes along with it. So
Right.
back to Star Trek. I thought it'd be really cool if I could pick the kids up from school and not have them on the bus if I was still wearing my Star Trek makeup. So in Next Generation, where I play Captain Ricks, and I had that split all the way up I look like an alien.
Yes.
And the skin tone is kind of mottled gray with little
Right.
dabs of blue. Now that look, okay, imagine that look in a car driving down the Interstate 14 north of Los Angeles into the high desert, and you look exactly like that. And in order to get to the school on time, so the kids are not put on the bus, you have to break the speed limit to get to the school. And in order to do that, I had a Pontiac that really kicked it.
So you went warp speed.
Yes, sir. I'm doing 90 miles an hour, and up ahead, I see a deputy sheriff. And I slow down to match his speed, and I'm passing him, and he gives me the dirtiest look, and he looks at me, and here's what I do. I am late. I'm pointing to my watch for my ship. I'm pointing to this. I'm trying to do this backwards. So I'm trying to explain to him that I'm an alien and I'm late to rendezvous with my spaceship. And I'm looking at him and I'm going, man, I wonder what my bail's going to be.
Hoping you have enough.
God, at 75 miles an hour, he closed his eyes, gives me the dirtiest look, turns away, and just waves me on like, just get the F out of here. And I go, oh, cool. He's either going to radio ahead, have me thrown in jail, or I'm good to go. And I was good to go. So I hit 100 miles an hour and just there's nobody on the road. I was being safe, and they had telephones in the school. So I had called the school and I talked to the kids and I said, I'm coming to pick you up. I'll be in the classroom and I'm wearing my makeup from Star Trek. And that's exactly what I did. And the kids loved it, took them home, and their mom, she thought that was really sweet. So I asked my girlfriend, their mother, I said, okay, we should go shopping now and have fun.
So you had fun with, you were one of the cool dads.
Yeah. So I was a stepdad. So we went to Safeway and I'm dressed like that. And I'm looking like this alien and people are, what the heck? And the kids are going, oh yeah, he was exposed to radiation as a child. I mean, they went with it. They had a blast. So
that's awesome.
It's fun. That's what we do.
Yes. And I must admit, the people that I surround myself with, I do a lot of makeup, so they get the glory, and I love it because, like I said, I'm not really comfortable in front of the camera, so I live vicariously through my father-in-law who models for my makeup, and he's the real walking Ted, or my cousin who is certain characters. And
But
I
what
see
if,
that
but what if you were done with some prosthetic makeup? Then you'd be somebody else, and it'd be
that
okay.
that I think I could maybe do, because then you don't have to be yourself. You can cut loose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always loves to see the reaction of those that, like, one time, my father-in-law, we went into, we were doing a show, so I had to do a makeup demo. So he is from head to toe zombie demo, and we go into a Wawa, and he goes over and he finds a Snickers bar, and there's a picture somewhere on my photos of him with a hangry Snickers bar or something like that he's got in his hand. But yeah, he does that a lot. And my
I mean,
cousin now is
how fun is that?
oh yeah, yeah. And I just stand off to the back and watch the craziness.
No, no, see, it's not crazy. I'm going to share something from my sweet grandmother Sophie, uh, my nana, and she would say, "It's good to be childlike. Don't be childish. You'll get a whooping."
Oh, amen. I kind of live by that. And 2020 and 2021 so far hasn't been the easiest, but
It's been tough.
I have kind of made it my mantra to keep my inner Willy Wonka, to keep my inner Peter Pan, to be, that whimsical. It's hard. It's hard nowadays because we're beat up with reality. That's where the adulting comes in. But you're exactly right. I think if you can remain childlike and have that faith and that openness and that belief that people can be good. I don't think it's that we ignore that people can be bad. It's that we have to, we cultivate what we focus on. So I have to believe that there are more of the good people than the bad.
Well, there really is, and what you just struck upon is quite poignant, and that is, as we mature and become adults, we also want to be protectors. It's part of our tribal DNA, and that's a good thing. But it's important. I worked with so many school districts, working with anti-bullying issues and drug and alcohol. When I did drug and alcohol programs for fifth and sixth graders, my sponsors were the chief of police for Dade County, Florida, Richard Crum, God bless him, who was the chief of police when he had to book Jim Morrison for indecent exposure, which was BS,
Mhm.
and another friend who used to work in the shadowy underbelly of CIA, etc. But he was one of the good ones, a good guy. Anyway, they sponsored me to do the drug and alcohol programs for many school districts in the late 70s and early 80s. And they wanted me to talk to kids in a classroom about don't do drugs and alcohol. Well, just say no, it doesn't cut it. It's not it's not even a polite persuasion.
Yeah.
It's good intentions, but you have to come through the eyes of the kid. So what I would do, and they would always tell the parents, who there would be parents volunteering, and the teachers and principals, and they would always tell them to just wait, don't throw him out of the classroom yet. He's going somewhere with this. And I would walk into these classrooms, and they go, "Well, this kid, here's Michael. He's been in a movie, blah blah blah." And I remember poignantly what it was like to be in grammar school
Hmm.
and growing up. That's in my book too, and we're not going to segue into that because it was tough. Uh, anyway, so I walk in and I go, "Hi, kids. I know this is all, but we know why I'm here, and you're not doing any lessons right now. But I want to share with you some ideas that I think will help you in your life." Now, these grown-ups are all saying, "Don't do drugs, don't do alcohol." Well, I want to tell you something different. I want you to do drugs. Whoa, that got everybody's attention. I said, but the drugs I'm talking about are chemical compounds. Some of them will make you sleepy, some will make you happy, some will make you excited, some will calm you down. These are chemical compounds. I want to write some names on the board, and if you know what they are, raise your hand and let me know. No, I got every kid's attention.
Yeah.
So here's what I write down: adrenaline, endorphin, serotonin,
Dopamine. Oh,
Dopamine. Well, dopamine really got them going.
yes.
And then a couple kids started to raise their hand. They go, "Oh," I go, "Yeah, your body makes them. You can get pulled over by a cop on any of these 4 chemical compounds, and you can be high or low, sad, mellow, or excited, and you're street legal.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have somebody putting a gun to your head because you didn't pay them for the crack that you didn't smoke, that somebody stole from you, or come on, let's get real."
Yeah.
Now, I remember the 60s. I didn't have heavy issues, but I smoked pot. I had huge depression to deal with for obvious reasons, and a lot of medical situations where I was chewing on uh, uh, codeines like it was candy because I had surgeries that had cut open abscesses, and I mean, my lord. Uh, uh, yeah, I was happy to have some good smoke. Opium. My father actually said they should never eradicate opium.
Mm.
No, he's not saying do heroin. What he's saying is that there are certain plants and gifts that the creator, however you want to categorize it, put on this earth. Learn how to use them for a reason.
Right.
Now,
And
I
they
don't
sure
mind.
beat the chemical stuff that people are, creating.
Thank you. My dad, John Sloan Berryman. You can Google him. You can Google him. He's passed on, but he was so upset when they first started to advertise prescription drugs on TV for profit.
Mm-hmm.
That is criminal, in my opinion. It
Yeah.
is wrong. It is heinous. And how do I know that it's incorrect? For the same reason, here's another parallel of a drug. And these televangelists that come on late at night when people are desperate and they're living alone, and and these vultures try to suck up the last remaining dignity and funds that these poor people have, and promise them a bunch of BS. I'm sorry, if I want a connection with the Creator, I can do it right here, right now, and I sure don't need you. So try this sometime. You're having a
Right.
rough day, you're tired with the news, COVID, etc. Anytime between 11:30 and 3:30 in the morning, call one of these live televangelists. Because see, they're rich, they're millionaires, they don't care about you, but they'll sure. I've done this on more than one occasion. Call them up and I would say, "Hi, I'm rich. I have no heirs. I've got a lot of money, and the Holy Spirit is talking to me through your TV program, and I trust you, and I love you, and Jesus is Lord, and blah blah blah." And I'm an ex-altar boy, so don't lecture to me. So how do I give you my money? I finally got one night. I went for about almost 25 minutes babbling to these people. I says, "Well, prove to me that you're alive, and then I'll give you my account number, and I'll have my lawyers draw papers and come by your office, give me the street address where you're at, and they'll give you my $1.3 million because I have terminal disease and I'm going to die, but I want the money to go to you because you're doing the Lord's work." And they were going to go for it,
Mm-hmm.
totally go for it. So I said, "I want to see somebody live walk on stage and whisper in that guy's ear who's wearing the green jacket." And they did that. And they come back on and they go, "Okay, what's your number? We want your money." And I said, "It's 7734. They go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I said, "That's it." "Well, that's not enough numbers for an account number for a bank account." "Did you write it down?" "Yeah." "Hold it up to the mirror. What does that spell?" "Well, it spells hell." And I said, "Yeah, and that's where you're going, you evil son of a bitch."
Yeah.
And then they said, "Well, you wasted all of our airtime. How dare you?" And I said, "What do you mean, how dare me?" I says, "Maybe the Holy Spirit would come through and somebody trying to call you in a desperate situation in need, and all you want to do is destroy their lives, and they get a
Yeah.
busy signal.
Yeah.
The Lord works in mysterious ways." And I said a
I'll
few
tell you though, most and I can relate to that because I've worked with at-risk kids through the churches and stuff like that, and
right.
I can tell you from firsthand experience, the people that do the most in that regard usually do with the least. They don't have the mega million churches, they don't drive the Audis and the Mercedes. They're humble, they do it one on one. I just talked to a good friend of mine today who exemplifies that. She has given so much of herself for women and children and recovering situations,
Very
which
important.
I have to give a shout out, because it was actually her son, and this boy is a good boy. So Holden Terry, happy birthday! I know you had the birthday on the 10th. Michael Berryman is here
Happy
too,
birthday,
and I
buddy.
know you're a big fan of his. um,
Thank you.
but I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are people like this woman, Denise, that are quietly doing God's work, making very little, and that's where it is. And I know we've waxed, philosophical and now religion, but I always stress the relationship over religion. That's more important to me than
That's very true. That's very, very true. I mean, even the carpenter was no wimp. He had muscles in the hammer, but I mean, when he's throwing people out of my father's temple, I mean, there's a lesson there. It's like, where are you? We're two or more gathered in my name. Hello.
yes.
When I
Yes.
when I did Ruggiero Deodato, we did a movie called Cut and Run. We went down to Guyana, Venezuela, in the Amazon, and did that remarkable film. And I got to become good friends with Richard Lynch. Um, well, one of our seamstresses was we met in Caracas, and we actually met Hugo Chavez. That was interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, he had something to say about cocaine and uh,
Imagine.
our propensity to make him rich. But one of our seamstresses that went down to Guyana with us was an orphan. She was raised in a nunnery, and she did not have, and she was going to become a nun, and until Mother Superior wanted her in an inferior situation. I'll be polite. And I'm an altar boy survivor, so I I cut to the chase. I don't deal with minutia and fluffy BS. If it smells, I'll tell you it smells.
Right.
Okay. So I'm not a big fan of fancy churches. I'm not a big fan of uh, my God is well. When I was very, very young, probably 12 years old, I came up with a part of my philosophy of life. And there's two things that cause most pain and suffering in the world of humans. Animals don't create war and cause chaos. Insects do on occasion, but there's two things that cause more pain and suffering than anything else I can think of. And number one is if I draw a line in the dirt, or if I say my God's better than your God.
Mm.
Both of those concepts, both of those actions, causes blood to leave people's body. Period. Now, there's a lady by the name of Joan Baez, and she had a double album called Baptism. It's worth a listen to. You can get it. It's on vinyl. Vinyl's back. I love analog.
Yes.
So there's a vague reference for you. And I actually was a guard at Bob Dylan's house for 2 years, where he and his family lives. Got to meet Bobby. I went to the first concert at the Santa Monica Civic when the first half was acoustic, and then he went electric. And we, the folkies, we booed him. And I remember telling him this story when I'm at his house and we're having a conversation. He goes, "Yeah," and I said, "Yeah, you looked real nervous." And he says, "Yeah, I wasn't feeling the love." I said, "Yeah, but then you did All Along the Watchtower with a Fender guitar and Clayton King and the rest of your band, and you brought the house down. I just want to say thank you." See, I was part of the 60s. I was in college in 66 or 72. Saw the Jefferson Airplane at the Psychedelic Pillow concert. Everybody's smoking hashish. It was just fantastic. There are things that people freak out about that are stupid to freak out about.
Mm.
You know,
Sometimes
doors of
too
doors
serious.
of perception. Once you've gone through the looking glass and you've seen it, you don't need to repeat the process, and then you become stupid. You're supposed to take the wisdom of those things. I've done peyote. I've been with my Native American friends, and the flower children are people that just experiment with mind altering, whatever. It's a journey. It's a quest. It's not the end game.
Mm.
You know. I like shoes. Well, I want to have 1,000 pairs of shoes. No, not necessarily. Maybe you should walk a mile in one of those shoes. So we as a society are not always the best mentors. We have potential. So it's potentiality, like Deepak Chopra talks about. Potentiality is always available. So even in your darkest moments, there's always potential for light.
Yes.
So what do you want? You want light. Light is wisdom.
Right. And the thing that I love about this life, and I know this is totally not horror and not Monster Manor talk usually, but being kind is free. It costs nothing.
That's
And it's a
right.
shame that people don't share more of it. I would love to see that. And I know you've been very kind to come on our show because, like I said, we're not a huge show yet, but we have a great love for what the cinema was and the classics and actors like yourself that have been a part of our lives for virtually our whole life. So I really do believe in kindness and giving that kindness back, regardless of how we're treated.
Well, that's very true. Who takes the higher road? I had a friend with he had polio and he wore crutches. Uh, I mean, he wore braces. He was one of the kindest persons I'd ever met. And when I was probably 9 years old, I watched some kid trip him and he fell to the ground. And then I realized what my synapses are in my cerebrum. I had a very quick temper. I
Mhm.
got in trouble a lot, but it was all justified. It's like in the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, True Lies, and he's got the truth serum, and he tells his wife, but they were all bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
kind of how I was as a kid, and a little bit
That's
of that
righteous
stays.
indignation, Michael.
Well, that's very true. But I want to do a quick shout out to the father of a dear friend of mine, Brandon Lee. We did The Crow together, and our scenes were lost when he lost his life. Safety on the set's critically important. I'm a huge advocate of gun safety
Mhm.
and safety and trust your. That was a really rough go when that
Mhm.
happened. A union busting attitude does not bode well in my realm. But there's a wonderful scene when I was explaining to Brandon Lee. He invited me into his motorhome, and we were discussing about the importance of the Skull Cowboy and Eric Draven. And I want to do a shout out to my dear friend. We love her, Rochelle Davis, who played uh, Sarah in the film. She's uh, deserves a lot of love. Well, there's a scene in the Bruce Lee movie when it's Lau's time, when he goes to do the secret mission and goes to Han's tournament, and he's explaining to the British Secret Service agent, just a moment, I want to teach this kid a lesson, and he goes, kick me, and he goes, well, how does that feel? And the kid goes, let me think, and I'm telling this to Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son, and Brandon's face is just smiles and illuminated. I did a pretty good job with it, and I go where Bruce Lee says it's like pointing your finger to the moon. Don't focus on your finger, or you will miss out on all of that celestial glory. And then he says, and this is the point: emotional content.
Mhm.
So I used to practice looking in the mirror. If you're an actor and you're hearing me or watching this episode, practice studying your face in the mirror with not moving or saying any words, and just feel emotions from happy, sad, and excited, and different things, and it'll read on your face. So when it comes time for my close-up, Mr. DeMille, what lens are you on? I prefer an 85 prime.
Capture everything.
Yeah, 85 primes are beautiful.
Yes. Oh wow. Well, I just realized a few moments ago
I've been watching you do that.
we have gone so over, and I'm so sorry because I
I'm
want to give
having
it.
fun.
Are you? Oh well,
Oh, I'm enjoying every bit of this.
oh, wonderful. Well, I can't wait because I know we talked about it one time before on the phone and through our mutual friend, who I have to give a shout out to, Tammy Kane, for kind of introducing us on this.
Yes,
So
thank you, Tammy.
very much thank Tammy for that. because I've always been a fan of yours. Like I said, from Star Trek on, um, I can't tell you what it means to meet you and to know and hear the stories that Tammy has told, and see that you're the genuine article, that you are one of those guys that you say what you mean and you mean what you say. Um, Howard is another mutual friend, Howard Navorska, um, and he has said so many nice things about you. And I hope that the viewing people out there that are watching Monster Manor know what a guy this is. Michael Berryman is much more than just a character. He is an icon, but he's a wonderful person, and that's why I'm glad you have this book coming out, because I can't wait to read
I'm more than
it.
just a pretty face. Yeah,
Well,
it's
to me as
it's
an artist, though, I love your face. I love your face, the character in it, and every crease and wrinkle. I mean, it's a beautiful face. Not to sound like I'm a fanboy or anything like that, but as an artist, there is very much, there's a lot of qualities to that, and I'm like the figure that we were working on. I'm
I
like,
was quite impressed actually. There was a point in time when I had to have my eyelids done and my nose fixed so I could breathe. So there's a slight change there, but here's a little fun thing we could end with, or get close to ending with. And this is in Motley Crue, smoking in the boys' room, because we were goofing around with the kids. I had a designated driver on purpose because I knew I'd be misbehaving with them back in the green room
yeah,
or backstage. And I said, "Hey Vince, can you do this?"
oh,
You do one and then the other,
that,
and
yeah,
and so they actually put that in. The boys wanted that in the movie when they pull the wig off, and he does the ear wiggle. They cut the ear wiggle out after Smoking in the Boys Room had been on MTV for a long time,
hmm
which was just a few seconds. And why? Who knows why? To squeeze some time in for a commercial. I don't know.
right,
I actually had to do a voiceover for some TV show, and the guy doing the ADR session gave me a worksheet that had a comment on it to reinstate the ear wiggle for that video 4 seconds. He got paid to put the ear wiggle back in because they cut it out, and people called up and phoned MTV and complained so much that they had to hire somebody to to edit the ear wiggle and put it back in the video so it'd be on demand with the ear wiggle. People were not happy that the ear wiggle had been removed. So
oh
you never
wow,
know where your talents may lie.
yeah. Well, when you're talking with producers or people associated, they will take every little thing that you give and it goes into the hopper, and eventually it comes out, or we hope it does sometimes. But I remember that was a good scene at the end.
Just
Very,
goofing
very cool.
around. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I got to tell you, it's been a very full, challenging day today, and I want to do a shout out to our kitty Kiki. And I was actually napping, and then I got the text. And I said, "Oh, I got to go do this Zoom time." And I hope this guy's what he said. I hope it's all a good experience. And I just want to say thank you for helping me. Have a wonderful crescendo for today. You're very astute. You're straight up. You're a good human, and thank you very much. It's been wonderful.
oh, I have to thank you. And if you want, I know you've had a full day. If you want to catch it in playback, we're going to go on to our little Boris segment here. So that's a good send off for you. I do appreciate your time, and I owe you a paisano. So once all this blows over, we want to take you out to Paisanos and actually enjoy some face to face once
I
everything.
know Paisanos. Yeah, that would be delightful. Yeah, that would be delightful. Well, you know how to reach me. Keep in touch, and everybody, stay safe and take care of one another.
Thank you very much, Michael. And if you need anything, you know who to call. We're here for you.
Okay, bud.
Thank you so much.
All right, Scott. Peace out.
So that was Michael Bearman. We're very thrilled that he was on our show. Now we're going to probably catch something from Boris because he's a little bit salty that way.
You locked the door!
Well, we with good reason.
Boris had to pick the lock in the room next to the door. You locked them out, you bastard!
Well,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Michael. Michael was a little bit more important, Boris.
At least you can let them watch from the inside.
Well, without further ado, and before he puts the stranglehold on me, let's introduce Boris for his segment.
All right. How does Boris follow that? How does he follow that?
It's gonna be hard.
That's 90 minutes of pure gold. Disclaimer. Hell, this is gold. You had an icon on. Boris is like farting in the wind at this point with all the stuff he takes.
Read it.
We're gonna renegotiate.
You want to renegotiate?
We want to renegotiate because you punched.
Renegotiate?
Because you got a lawsuit. You punched him in the face last week.
I'll show you a renegotiation.
Oh, not that type of. Well, at least you're the other side. Thank you. Thank you for punching the other side to fate, make it even. This is broccoli?
You want to read it now?
Yeah, season's choice. This is the season's choice. All right. It was laminated. Disclaimer. Everything, if you've been here since show one, everything come out of Boris' mouth. Boris' fault. You blame Boris. Sue Boris. Don't sue the fence to maker. Fred and the obnoxious little producer lady going to punch and throw a shoe at you. The little fence to makers ain't got no money. And, blame Boris. He's on the slasher app. Just write them hate mail. He going to forget it anyway. So what was Boris supposed to do today? Because he watched that touching thing with you and then he forgot everything. Oh, the fight. Last week we had the Dracula lose to the Wolfman. And this week we got the more puppets. We're going to reach down and get the puppets. We got 2 puppets. Fence to make him put coffee on the puppet. We got this week is the Invisible Man versus Mr. Hyde. Look like the Penguin, but this is Mr. Hyde. So we're going to win in the fist fight between the Invisible Man and Mr. Hyde. It's going to be easy. Invisible Man said, look that way. Hyde go, what? Look that way. He take all his clothes off and disappear. So now Invisible Man just run around the room, go in the corner and hide, and then hide with his little top hat. And, he's like, well, now what? So he walk around the room, kicking at nothing. He's swiping at nothing. And then he's laughing. So he go over like Marco Polo, and he run over there in the Polo, nothing. So it's about 2 days before.
Boris.
Yes.
Is that my Quinn sculpt?
Yeah, he took the Dracula from last week, take the cape off, pull the head off, and put the Quinn on, and then take from the Penguin that you had in the do not open container and put the little top hat to make Mr. Hyde.
I realized that was a prototype.
Well, prototype is now active.
Oh.
You look nice in the Mr. Hyde with the pole.
Okay, we'll take this up later, Boris.
Put it under it. So about 2 days him wandering around the room and now smelling the leavings of the Invisible Man because he can't poop, but the poop is invisible. He say, forget this, and he go, oh, I got snuff. So he reach into the pocket and throw the snuff. And here's the Invisible Man, just snuff on there. He was like, hey, and then they choke him. Now he's gonna choke him, and because he got no real powers, he's just invisible. Maybe a little strong, but Hyde is stronger, and he's like a beast, and he's gonna, and you choke him to death, and he died. But now the snuff come off, and Hyde forget where the body is. He trip him up and break his neck. Now in come, because he hear the thing in the noise in the room. In come Nosferatu, kind of like the hell. So he make the thing with his mouth, and all of a sudden, because he's speaking the subtitles come up. What in the Max Shrek going on in here? And you see the dead Hyde on the floor, and you see nobody. And he's like, what the heck? And then somebody said, oh, Nosferatu beat Mr. Hyde in the battle, so Nosferatu go do the three-way championship next week with Frankenstein and the Wolfman. And then he say something else on the bottom. It's like, but I didn't do nothing. They're like, well, tough crap, you got to go. Tough titties, you go. And he's like, and he's like, yeah. So next week, or 2 weeks actually, you got Dracula. No, not Dracula. Sorry, Boris like just saying Dracula. Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and Nosferatu in the three-way fight to see who in the fist fight. So that's good.
Oh my! So that is an interesting. And I'm sorry about your face.
They get dislocated retina here.
So
there's a clear fluid supposed to come out the Boris' nose.
No.
I need a hospital.
We'll check it. We've got some telesis. We'll work it out.
That's nice. Just rub some dirt on it.
Well, before you pass out, could you tell everyone about the coloring contest that we're doing here in the Manor?
That's real.
Yes. Yes.
You for crapping, that's real.
You're famous. Yes.
Not for you're famous. Where you? Oh, here you put it. Okay, this color Boris. At least you make them. Really, you couldn't take like 20 pounds off Boris, you bastard. All right, this is a coloring game. It's Boris. You could digital color it. Color with the crayon. If you're a Marine, don't need the crayon. Pencils, dirt, whatever. Just color Boris. And there's a what is this? Send it to Scott Fenstermaker Sculpture Studio on the Mazda Manor. Was it midnight Thursday something?
Is it Thursday of next week?
They'll post it.
On the Monster Manor page.
He posted on the Mazda Manor. Don't tell Boris, but he tell the Mazda Manor page. So color Boris. Please be kind.
The email.
Yeah, but no, Boris don't read the email. Boris put the spam folder with the one that's in larger Jimmy.
Get his text number before he leaves today.
So color Boris, be nice, please, but not as nice. You could be cruel. It don't matter. Boris, you're gonna look at this and go, every bad one he gets, he's gonna make fun of the fence to make it some more. But that's nice, You maybe what are you waving at? Look, he waving behind the camera. Missed the big shot. Tell Michael Bearman, you went to warp speed. Really? Had to tell the big actor man, you went warp speed. That joke died in 1995 when it went. Tell big actor man, like, you should make apology to Michael Bearman. And if you want Mr. Bearman, Borders apologize for Fence to Mega for saying you went at warp speed.
It's okay.
You're a nerd, all right? You don't say that to a god like that. That man been in everything. Everything. He's the only one out act Jack Nicholson in Cuckoo's Nest, and he don't say nothing. Sorry, Boris big fan, but he'll lock outside. So we got Denise Edwards, this wonderful woman, run Over the Rainbow Foundation for people hard off, battered wives, men having problem, children having problem. This is serious, and she put her heart and soul into this, and she put so much into this. Over the Rainbow Foundation. You should look it up when we put it on the Monster Manor page to see what it's about, and maybe, see if you can help. But she's a wonderful woman. She's a big fan. And turned to some serious producer lady, and she put up comedy. Sorry, Miss Edwards. This is the lady, the professional behind the camera. But really check it out. She's a nice lady, and she really busts her behind, especially in the pandemic when, charity is not so good because nobody got no money. So at least throw her at least a love. Send the email that, thank you, lady, for doing this. Boris legally, Murray's House of Shovels. He has to say Murray's House of Shovels. Murray's House of Shovels, we can dig it. If you like the palette of Boris, you use the Pache airbrush, because not everybody look like Boris. You need help. Oh, you got the sign. Here come the sign in. Do Pache. You like it, jeans. And no, we're not going to Tammy's game. Tammy introduced Michael Bearman, the Dingleberry over here. And what he get? He get 25 cents. Talk about Yam Hut on 441 near the cowboy boot. How about tossing Boris some love and getting Michael Bearman, here's your phone number, something like that? No. So Tammy Yammy, we're going to go to your Yam Hut and we're going to spit on it. You got pooey for Tammy's Yammies. We got you want the comic book too, right? Boris loves the comic book when the lady punched him in the face. Whoop, whoop, and come out the pocket. Thank you. So in 2 weeks, there's a camera there. He's looking at the monitor. R.J. Grady, the Celtic Creature, the Keeper, and Cam Lucas from the A tier That's a good one. Coming on the show to do the bagpipes, talk about swamp creature. They're in the back there like this. And he make a comic book. Now, Boris like it because there's more pictures than words. And they tell the story of the killed the creature, how they meet the keeper, and how he, the brother of the creature from the Black Lagoon, and how he went, why he went a kilt, and why he liked the bagpipes. You know, Boris sound like, you know, somebody strangle a cat, but I mean, he make it sound good. So this I think is for what, 50 cents? You go RJ Grady Facebook page and say, Boris sent you, here's my 50 cents. I want to buy the thing and maybe sign it for you. But if not, you know, tough. You got a comic book. When you gonna get the 50-cent comic book now, don't have the Batsman in it being all angsty and Superman saying, what can I do? What look up? We said that. Look up, kill the lady just put look up, kill the creature on the Facebook. 5 minutes ago, Boris say, look up, kill the creature on the Facebook. And he's a fan of Monster Man, so you can find Monster Man and say, oh, there's kill the creature. That's RJ Gray. That's the kill the creature. I say twice. You know, write the sign. See, they don't like Boris. She don't write the signs like that when fence the makers saying bad joke to Michael Bearman, like, hey, I'm at a warp speed. Yeah. No, she didn't write that suck more than a freaking vacuum in space. No, she write, that's good job, Mr. Festman. Happy Valentine's Day. Boris get all these notes.
I think that you may have upset Tammy and her yummies.
Why?
So go ahead and spit on my yummies. See if I introduce you, Boris.
It's too late now.
Your spit will help my yummies grow.
No, I'm not spitting on the yammies. I'm spitting on the door and then calling the health inspector and going, look, somebody spit on the door and she don't clean it up. And it's only 4 o'clock in the morning, so ha. Maybe he'd draw a dingle on the yammies hut. You never know. And he know the car, so he fight you. What is it? No, he's not going to spit there. He was in the face, and the producer lady, gross. You working with this midget, it's like evil dwarf. The punch in the face. It's a hostile work environment here, and Boris has lost his mind because he was locked out with Michael Bearman, and this is run over. So Boris is going to say goodbye, because you're probably not watching right now anyway, except for Tammy Yammy, who would pee off at him for spitting on the yammies. So,
congratulations, you pissed off one of your...
Yay, we pissed off a sponsor. But you know what she did that first? It's either a quarter for Boris or introduce Michael Bearman. What Boris get? 25 cents. Thank you. Really? Not even a half autograph picture where he scribbled M. But anyway, Boris got to sign off because you're probably not watching anyway. You're probably like, what's on the TV? I got to go pee. Or, hey, Netflix got that Ratchet we're going to check out. Or, I'm going to watch Ice Pirates on Amazon Prime. So, if the nice little lady over there done giving notes, she could roll the credits. Remember, sponsored by Pasha Airbrush, RJ Grady, the Celtic Creature on Facebook, coming on the 27th. And then we're going to post something about the guy coming on March 6th, Daniel Roebuck. And yeah, I saw that. Boris sees that and he fenced to make a post. Holden Teddy, her son. Yes, Holden Teddy, Denise Edwards' son. Happy birthday for the 10th. Yeah, thanks. You're putting up some gibberish up in the front of the notes. Saying about hold a hand or something. That too. Sorry, Boris is now choke up. Holden Teddy, happy birthday. It's late, February 10th. Hope you got something cool. So roll the credits, lady. And Boris is going to see you whenever they let him back on. Probably not. So if this is Boris' last show, have a good one.